This episode of the Better To podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needom, author of the Better To Burn Out series. Today, I would like to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite places, Synergy Collective, a bohemian lifestyle brand curating wellness for the mind, body, home, and soul. Located in the heart of the Midwest, Rockford, Illinois. Inside the storefront and online, you'll find a beautiful selection of crystals and metaphysical tools, boho apparel and accessories, sustainable home and beauty items, books, candles, and other unique gifts. They also offer a variety of community events, classes, and workshops in their Rockford location, including some select classes that are taught by me. So I invite you to explore the collective at www.shopsynergycollective.com and use code BETTER215 at checkout for 15% off your first online purchase. Welcome to the Better To podcast with DM Needom. I'm your host, Donna, or DM Needom. If you've read any of my books, you know that already, though. But today we are not here to talk about my books. We are here to talk about our guest, who is John Wayne S. III. He has been on the show before talking about his movie, Ebony Hustle. And today he's back to talk about its sequel, Ebony Hustle, Ballistic Protection. But we also talk about his movie, False Prophet, as well as Balanced. And we talk about people putting other people in boxes and how our programming, meaning our thought process, has us interact with people. So stay tuned. Hey, Donna from the Better To podcast here. If you've listened to my show, you know that it always sounds great. That's thanks to the guys at Third Ear Audio Productions. Third Ear Audio helps podcasters, broadcasters, musicians, and business owners get their important messages out to their audience. Rich and the Third Ear Audio team are easy to work with. They're efficient and understand that your message is important to you. With quick turnaround and the true caring of your needs, Third Ear Audio is your go-to for any audio message. Reach out to Third Ear Audio at 312-388-5596. Rich and his team will deliver for you. That's 312-388-5596. Or you could email them at info@thirdearaudio.com or visit them on the web at www.thirdearaudio.com. Hi, John. How are you doing today?
No, pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I am doing good. This is the second time John has been on the show, and we are going to discuss Ebony Hustle, Ballistic Protection, which I had the pleasure, because John allowed me to, of watching it before everybody else. Well, not everybody. I'm sure there's other people you've shared it with, but, you know,
Not too many. It's a small list.
Not often. Not often. Well, then I'm honored, because not often do you get to see a movie before, you have to be somebody. And well, I'm just a podcaster. But anyway, I thank you for letting me watch it. So let's talk about what made you decide to extend the franchise.
So really it was, I think it's more or less just kind of, people had a lot of questions and things about, Ebony as a character. That movie has streamed almost by itself between 6 and 7 million streams. So there's this appetite to want to know more about Ebony and what she's doing. And, when you bring characters to life, they live in your mind. And so while you're in your mind, they're living in your mind, they're working through a whole bunch of other stuff. And so now people have all these questions about, well, could Ebony do this? What about this? And so it was just kind of a natural progression between the distributor and my writing team to say, let's come up with something else.
And for you guys who have not seen Ebony Hustle and you have Peacock, you can find it on Peacock. That's where I watched it this weekend, because I watched both back to back, because like any good sequel, you really want to try to watch the first one before you watch the second.
Yes. So you can pretty much see it everywhere, from Amazon to Tubi to, pretty much other platforms. But if you Google it, you can pretty find all the platforms that it's on.
Well, then let me ask this. Now, what is the release date for Ballistic Protection?
It's going to be in March. I do have a date at the top of my head. I can't remember it.
Okay. We can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, it is. It's in March. I think it's March the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, when the streaming will be. There will be a limited theatrical release before that in a couple of key cities in our partnership with the Global Mixed Gender Basketball League that's in the movie. We're going to do a couple of theatrical releases of that, but the streaming release is going to be in March.
I wanted to ask you about that basketball because I had not heard of that basketball league before. So it is a legit basketball league.
Yeah, it's a real league where men and women play on. The league is ran by the president of the league is Master P, the rapper and entertainer and entrepreneur. There have 9 teams around the city. All 9 teams are owned by a celebrity or entertainer. So like the one in New York is owned by Ice-T. The one in Miami is owned by Trick Daddy. The one in Houston is owned by Monique and her husband. The one in Atlanta is owned by Tiny, which is T.I.'s wife
Mhm.
and singer for the Escape, the group Escape. So on and on. So every city of the 9 cities, they have something a notable person who is the league president.
It's interesting because with the topic, and I don't want to go too far off course here, but it's interesting because you have men and women playing basketball together, but yet we have such discourse about girls playing boys sports and vice versa. And if we made the teams like that to be a little bit more open, then wouldn't we have better teams, equal teams?
I agree. I mean, the opportunity, we live in society, not just in America, that people separate. Everybody likes to be put in boxes. And so when you have the WNBA, which is, I mean, the NBA, which is, men, and then you do it separately with WNBA, the idea is that they all know that it's the same game. They know the same rules. They're doing the same thing. The only difference is that one man is and one is women. With the global mixed gender, they found the balance of how they do it to balance out the each side. So I think it's like a 3-2 for 2 quarters, and it's a 2-3 the other 2 quarters, just so they can balance out the strengths between everybody and
Mhm.
everybody kind of equal play. Some women, are play stronger than guys, and some guys play stronger than women. So it just really depends. But they're all playing basketball. They're all
Well,
playing basketball. So it's the
yeah.
same rules.
I mean that's the thing and I mean we can talk about gender, we can talk about race because like you said, we're all put in these boxes and it's like my friends recently because my heater has been acting up and it's been negative. I think we hit negative 16 at one point. And in the middle of the night, my heater would shut off.
Mm.
Well, but I'm a woman. This shouldn't be something I should be able to do. So when I went on YouTube and you know what? I managed to fix it myself. And that's the thing, but I'm a girl. I'm not supposed to be able to do that. But one thing when I learned how to drive, my stepfather said, if you're going to learn how to drive, you're going to know how to change your oil, you're going to know how to jump your car, you're going to know how to change a tire. And I think that's what we really have to do is try to break those gender norms and those roles and even racial tension that these things it should not apply. We should have evolved past all of these things because guess what, we're all the same. The only thing that makes us different is our anatomy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I agree. And the thing about it is, I think a lot of times in society, because people are noted for putting something in the box, when people don't understand something, it's almost like little boys, when they like a girl, they hit her or pinch her or do something to her to make her cry because they don't understand her. In society, when people don't understand something, they either shun it or they shut it down because they don't understand it. And I think a lot of times when people spend more time, we are more the same than we are different. We're
mhm,
more the same than we different, as much as people may know. I'm gonna give you an example. I remember once I was waiting at the airport, and this girl was having this conversation about her family. Her friend's family wanted to do a Airbnb, do a trip and go somewhere. So I'm, ear hustling. I'm listening to the conversation here, talking and everything. And she goes in this whole conversation about how every single time when they want to plan something, everybody is so much zeal and everything to do it. But when it comes time to put the money in, everybody seems to disappear. And when they finally did have the event, people were there who hadn't paid anything. And the funny thing about it was that what made me so funny is about had that conversation with my family so many times. It was so funny. It's like, wow, you have that problem too? Yo, people do the same thing
yeah.
because we live in a society where everybody's separated. Coming from Chicago, Chicago is a very segregated city. And although we all go downtown for work and we all kind of converge and everything, when it's time to go home, everybody goes to the neighborhoods. Everybody
Mhm.
goes to the neighborhoods. So you really don't see what, thinking that you don't know what they're doing in their regular life to know that it's this, it's different or it's the same or whatever. You just know that you live in your world and they live in their world. If people spend more time just really connecting and really integrating their life, they'll see that we all want the same thing. We want all kids to go get education. We want to go on vacations. We want to go to the grocery store. We don't want to have high light bills. We want to get a discount. We're all
Right.
the same thing. It's just that because of race and what people of society have told us and the media, we tend to get on these teams that don't really exist.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, this goes back to before we even had the news media. This goes back hundreds of years because the people in power decided, hey, if we can divide people by class, by sex, then we have more control. And if we can make you hate the other person, then we can control it. I mean, we're seeing it play out overseas right now. And it's like, really, there's no reason for anybody to be at war. But
Yeah.
yet we create such tension because we have to have this narrative. And when we push a narrative that somebody isn't right or somebody doesn't look right or this, that, and the other thing, we create dissension. And therefore we can keep you separated. And if we keep you separated, we can control you easier.
It's a distraction. I think about just in Washington, D.C. I can remember back in the day where they had a bill or something they were trying to pass, and they would find a compromise to push it through. So if everybody wanted cheese to be free, the other person wants to pay 50% off, 50% of cheese, they'll say, okay, we're going to do 40% off for cheese, but everybody, they'll make something, they'll come to an agreement, and then they pass it. And everybody's happy. Now it's like, I want free cheese. No, you need to pay for it. So now we don't have nothing. So nobody has cheese because nobody can come to an agreement about how we're going to get cheese. So we just sit there and nothing gets happening.
But I think part of that came about when Citizens United passed because corporations suddenly became people. And I'm not we have the Heritage Foundation and ALEC that create these bills for the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats have their own think tank. So the people we put in power, are they really in power? Are they just little figureheads being run by corporate America? And I know we didn't mean to talk about this. That just kind of went there, but that's part of the control. It's like if corporate America dictates that this is the best thing ever, this item right here in my hand, and you better have it, how many people are going to go out and rush out and buy it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I know we were talking about marketing earlier about movies and everything you have to market, but when corporate America says this is great, we all run.
So I remember this movie that Eddie Murphy, I think it's Distinguished Gentleman, where he went to go work in Washington, D.C. And so he's sitting down with one of the congressmen, and the guy asks him, what's your position on sugar? He said, what should my position be? He said, well, I have money for it and I have money against it. You just pick which side you want to be on, because either one of them, I have money for you. And so when everything is about who can control who, you're right. It's not really us making decisions. It's society telling us that we need to do it. It's almost kind of like the Android and iPhone war. They're both phones. They pretty much do exactly the same thing. There's some features that are different, but the society's like, oh, if you don't have an iPhone, something's wrong with you. Oh, I don't use iPhone. It's a distraction. And what always scares me about distractions is that if you're distracting me, what are you really doing that I don't see? What is really happening that I'm not really paying attention to because I'm distracted over a cell phone? Or just like in the last a couple of weeks or so, Cat Williams went on the show and the podcast, and he's talking, and everybody's making a big ruckus about it, and it's like, what are they trying to push through that we're not paying attention to? Because it's all a distraction. These two guys are having a conversation about his opinion, about his reality, his truth. But we got so sucked into it. I wonder about what bill they pushed through, what things happen that we have no idea and we're not paying attention to it. That's not getting the light of day because we're all concerned about trivial things that in reality don't really mean anything.
Well, and that's kind of what the celebrity culture. And yes, I do write books about that kind of world, but I also set my books in the 80s and 90s. So it's a different time. But, we had the whole thing of, you brought up lobbyists. It's interesting because back, I think it was in the 30s, they banned bribery. They said bribery was illegal in politics. Oh, okay. So let's put a pretty little bow on it and change the term and call it lobbying. Yeah, that's not bribery. Oh, really? It's the same thing, is it not?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Well,
Yeah.
and,
But once again, that's a distraction. It's also chain
mhm.
of word. And there's focus groups on what words make people feel, how they make them feel, what they believe. And based off of those words, that makes people make a determination of what they want to do. I remember, I guess it's been so long now, I probably can say this. I did this focus group years ago when they were first starting Google, and Larry Page was there. I didn't know he was there until like after we got the focus group. And so they went to this whole thing about the pages and like, do you think it should just be the Google the way it is now? They had all these variations of what it should be. And we're not really talking anything that makes any sense. We're just telling our feelings about it. And so after we got finished, he came out, and this is before anybody think about Google, because we didn't have any searches. It wasn't really
Right.
like it is now. And he came out and he was talking to us and he was like saying, "Oh, thank you so much. I think it's so insightful, your ideas." But he also said he had talked to like 3 or 4 other focus groups and they all had different ideas about how the page should be. So a very small group of people are making decisions for a very large amount of people. And depending on what they feel that day, what mood they were in, what their own politics or whatever, they'll decide for everybody else.
But isn't that the same thing? Isn't that the truth about polls? It's the same thing. We're like, oh, we polled 100 people and 97% said they were voting for. Okay, 100 people is nothing. It's kind of like the Iowa
Yes.
caucus. The Iowa
Yes.
caucus is a great example because I think it was 97 people didn't 97% of the registered Republicans didn't show up. So you're
Mhm.
basing it on this limited amount that he's going to, just because he got the nominee, there was like this little fraction.
But
So,
But most people don't really, the people who are qualified to actually vote, such a smart, they don't participate. Like here in Houston, we have term limits, so the mayor had ran 2 times, and so they were getting somebody new in. And so we had this big bad, ice storm here and everything. And so the new mayor is on social media talking. And it's so funny. In the comments, people's like, wow, what happened to Sylvester Turner? When did he become? When this guy? Who's the man? What happened? Did something happen? It's like we just had like a regular election, a primary, a regular election, and we had a runoff. You didn't see any of that?
but see, that supports your distraction. And here's the thing with the account, you have to also dovetail it into this. Besides, we have the media social distraction. Now with the economy in the inflation rate, where some people are working 2 jobs and then plus trying to have a family, do they have time to even pay attention to what's really going on in the world?
Yeah.
I mean, that there's so many little caveats to all of this that yeah, it's amazing that somebody you hear something like this and you're like, how did you not know? But then
Yeah.
there's the time when you open a story and there's like such and such was found dead in his house. He'd been dead for like a month and a half and nobody noticed.
Yeah.
I think we get so distracted by our own lives that we can't look outside of it sometimes.
Yeah. And depending on where we get our information from, that's how we determine, our Rick Aston, never going to give you a guy. He's been killed like
Mm-hmm.
multiple times because social media said he was dead. And they're like, oh my God, he died. Oh my God. They kill people just because what people get their information from, they put it on that this person is dead, and then they kill him. And the person can be like, hey,
Jamie
not
Lee Curt Jamie Lee Curtis just
yeah.
went through that. Mm-hmm.
So people, it just takes a little bit for somebody to say something. They don't have to be true or anything like that. Nobody has to do a fact check. You probably remember back in the day when the news stations had to do the balance.
Oh
They
yeah,
had to do the balance thing to
yeah.
where they just couldn't have one thing. But then when
Mm-hmm.
they changed the law, which
The
created all
fairness
the
doctrine.
specialty,
Yeah.
yeah, when they all the specialty, like all the MSNBCs, the Foxes, because now they didn't have to do that. Now people pick their entertainment, even though it's news, they pick the entertainment and how they like to digest it, and that's what they run with. And they get emotional about it because there's no balance. There's nobody saying, like I think about CNN used to have Crossfire. And we
Mm-hmm.
look at Crossfire, and Crossfire will have those big. You don't have to agree with them, but you get to see both sides of what they're thinking. There's none of that. Everybody's just kind of like, if you like to get your news from Yahoo, then they're going to slay it one way or the other. If you like to get your news from CNN or whatever, they're going to slay it one way.
It's infotainment now.
Yep.
That's the thing. News turned into ratings. Once it became a 24-hour news source, eventually after we repealed the fairness doctrine, then we ended up where we have infotainment and it's all about ratings and I mean Fox News proved how much the ratings are and how much you can slant something. And when you look at how, like you were saying about the media as far as where you get it, then you have the internet. and you have the internet giving you, somebody's claiming they're an authority on something and they know these big secrets and there's a conspiracy here. I'm not saying conspiracies are wrong. I'm not saying conspiracies are right. This is just this thing. I don't buy them, but that's the thing. Some conspiracies do turn out to be true, but a lot of them don't. And
Mm,
what has been the detriment of that?
yeah.
So, I mean, there's just this whole, it's really hard just to, you have to really dig in and investigate on your own to see what is real. And even if you investigate on your own, there's still a chance it's not going to, you're not going to get the right information because somebody else posted this thing acting like it's true. And then
Yeah.
you have to go to here, since we're talking about fake, we have AI, and they're even saying that the deep fakes this year are going to be so much worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about Joseph Campbell has this book called The Power of Myth, and he says that in every myth there's some truth. And what happens is that, especially in this society, people take a little bit, a small sliver of what they believe that it's probably true, and they massage it a bit to whatever way they're trying to do, and they put it out there. And because people don't check anything, they go and just jump right on it. It's like they're having these things in Las Vegas a couple of months ago where they were saying that this there was these aliens walking around the mall, these really tall aliens. And so
Florida. It was in
was it
Florida. Yeah, it
was it,
was in
yeah.
Florida. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so they have these pictures, aerial shot, all the police running to the mall and everything, and they're trying to see what it is. And it really was just some kids that have randomly come in and did something. But they took that as like, oh my goodness, these
Yeah.
people like it. People like sensationalized. People like to be sensationalized. People like to see crime. That's why we have gapers delays, because people want to see accidents. They want to see those things. If I come on here and says, hey, this is the truth and this is how it is, nobody cares about that. They're not interested in that. But if I put a little slander on, or I say something slick about somebody, whatever case may be, then it's like, oh my God, you see what John said, blah, blah, blah. And so everybody got to share it. So it's just the way we built, and also the way we digest stuff. We're in a society that everybody likes sensational stuff. Even when we look on TV, the things that we like, the stuff that is the most gruesome, sexualized things are some of the bigger things on television. As much, it's almost kind of like the porn industry. Nobody looks at porn, but it's $1 billion industry, which is amazing. Nobody looks at it. If you ask somebody, oh, I don't look at porn, but it's $1 billion industry. How is that? So we say one thing, but then we do something else, and that comes out in numbers.
Well, it's the shame factor. Nobody wants to admit it because there's shame, and I'm supposed to be, a good Christian. I'm not supposed to be doing those things. Okay, whatever. And going back to the sensational thing, I think you and I are close in age, because let's take the internet away, and we still had the tabloids, and we still had, we had the tabloids with all sorts of scandals. And how often was the Inquirer getting sued in the 80s because they said something about somebody? Or let's see, we had Marilyn Monroe was still alive and she had an alien baby. I mean, there was on the Globe or the Sun. But the interesting fact is we love those things, but in the 70s and the 80s, when you talk about gruesome, you always had those warnings on the evening news. If you have
Yes.
somebody that's sensitive, please remove them, even in the early 90s. Because when I lived in Indiana briefly, there was a candidate who was anti abortion. And in his ad, we caught it once before they pulled it. He showed the aftermath of abortion. He showed dead fetuses on TV in the middle of the day when you have kids and everything. And of course, yeah, I had a kid at the time. And it was just kind of like, I didn't complain, but I was just kind of mortified that there was no warning.
Yeah.
And now we don't have warnings, but yet as a writer, you have to have trigger warnings for your books, which is
Yeah.
kind of just a wild. So then you have to wonder, when are they going to ask that of movies as well?
Mm. I guess in a way it's almost kind of like the rating. So rating used to mean something. It was R-rated, X-rated,
Mhm.
PG-13. So that's how you kind of gauge and everything.
Or triple X.
Yeah, so triple X, you know exactly what you're getting into. But back when the tabloids were really big, you know that if you looked at a tabloid, you have to take it with a little grain of salt. You knew that maybe, did Marilyn Monroe really have an alien baby?
Right,
Okay.
right.
It's entertainment. Maybe it happened. I don't know. So you
She's
kind
got,
of took it as while
yeah,
you're going through your grocery lanes and your register, you took it, you read it, you bought it. And it's like, okay, it wasn't told as fact.
right.
It
Right.
wasn't told as fact. It was no one saying that this is fact. It just said, hey, Marilyn Monroe had an alien baby. You're like, okay, Marilyn Monroe, what is Elvis still living? You
Yeah.
took it as that. Now stuff is told, oh, it's fact. Marilyn Monroe had an alien baby. And she
Yeah.
lives at this address. And the people who live there are like, hey, quit coming to my house. Marilyn's like, you had Marilyn. I know you had Marilyn in there.
It's
So
Pizzagate. Yes.
yeah, it's okay. So we have gotten to a side where everybody just takes things as truth and they don't know how to separate fantasy, creativity. As a creative, I write stuff. I use creative license all the time to write things because in real life, some things are just not that entertaining. And so I try to do things to entertain, but I also try to be responsible too, to a point to where I don't want to push it too a lot. A lot of stuff I do is not really a whole bunch of sexual or violence and everything. I really don't necessarily like that. It's not the type of filmmaker I am, but I do have to try to, embellish the stories a little bit just so they can be entertaining. I have a project I'm working on based off a book called The Promise of Coonsville. We're gonna probably be shooting which is 24, probably in 25, we'll probably be shooting it. And it is based off of it's a period piece set in during the Vietnam War where these two young boys live in this town in Texas called Coonville. Well, one boy lives in Coonville. And so what separates the two towns with a black town and a white town was this forest. And they meet each other, they become friends, and they make this promise to each other to always be there. But just like everything else, life happens. The kids grow up and they kind of like went their separate ways. And one of the boys is working for a congressman. He comes across this list of Vietnam vets that are coming back, and he remembers the boy's name. So he sets on this journey to find this guy all the way to California because he's in the VA hospital. And eventually they, reunite with each other and fulfill the promises of, being there for each other. And a lot of times when you have stories like that, I guess it really, it's a real book that the story is based off of, but I had to kind of like, massage the story a little bit because, in some cases it's not that entertaining. It's almost kind of like The Color Purple. If people read the book, The Color Purple book, they probably would be very like, why can't they believe it's all in that? I mean, you can't put everything in the movie, but there are a lot of things in the book that's kind of like, wow, but you can't put that in the movie. So just being a creative, you try to find ways to, massage stories to entertain people and everything. But you also want to be responsible about the stuff you say because people will take that as power and empower themselves to respond one way or the other.
Well, and I think that we've seen that a lot with, the internet has given us the power to have a voice without being seen so we can attack people. I saw something that was horrific the other day. This person went on, she said she heard somebody on YouTube, she watched them and then went after an author and left a 1 star review and then attacked the author. And it was really just bad that she did this as a joke, never read the book, just wanted to get under the author's skin. And so when she got blackballed because everybody went after her,
Mhm.
she's like, I'm only 17 years old.
Wow.
Okay, but wait a second. 17, let's be honest here. That's way, when I worked in insurance back in the 90s, the age of reason was 13. I
Yeah.
would say the age of reason now has gone a little bit lesser than that because kids are way more advanced than what we used to be. So
Hmm.
being 17 years old, you can be
Hmm.
charged with a crime, sweetie. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but that's not an excuse. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one thing we need to be more responsible of. Just because you want to be a jerk and blast somebody on the internet, that person has feelings. That
Yeah.
person has emotion. And don't go after somebody because, as you said, people take things with creative license and they'll go after you if you said something about somebody that they didn't or somehow put it where they didn't like it, they're going to come after you.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing about that, just what you said, it's the internet. You don't have to be seen, so you can I can sit behind my keyboard and be the baddest person in the world, and I can say whatever I want to say because in their mind, they're never going to see me. It's never going to happen. We were shooting a movie last year called False Prophets, which will be coming out later this year.
I
False
was going to
Prophets is
ask you about
about a
that.
woman who starts a Ponzi scheme in her father's church. And we were shooting in Galveston, Texas. And I remember while we were shooting, I heard like this big crash because we were shooting outside. I didn't pay too much attention, somebody had an accident. And then I heard somebody say, "Hey, John, somebody hit your car." And so I was like, what? And so I go out there. What happens is this drunk driver just went down the street and just hitting all the cars down the street. You just ran into all the cars. And so I'm like, I've learned I've not really had any accidents. I can't remember the last time I had accidents, but people have hit me before. I learned that when you get up the car, you turn on your video and you start talking to them, because then they can't change the story. I'm right here on videotaping, so I see the lady. She gets her car is totaled. She done ran to like 3 or 4 different cars. So I get on and she's just like drunk, and as we're walking and she's looking at the cars, she's like, "Can we just like act like this never happened?" And I'm like, what? And so I'm videotaping and I put it on social media because she didn't, the police didn't give us any insurance, anything. We kind of like out there and they just arrested the lady, took her away, and didn't give us anything. So this guy, I don't know if he knew her or not or whatever, he gets mad at me because I posted the video. He's like, "You don't know what people going through. You don't know, I'm saying to myself, I said, sir, do you not see the destruction? She totaled one car. Outside of her own car, do you see the destruction that she went through?" And he said, "Well, you don't know what people are going through." And he was like threatening me and things of that sort. I eventually just blocked him, but I'm saying to myself, you you didn't even know this lady. Why are you feeling some type of way that you feel like you needed to respond to this? But when you sit behind a keyboard, you can say whatever you want to say. And people get in arguments and conversations and that can turn really deadly because they're sitting behind a keyboard just saying whatever they want to say.
I was doing a live podcast. I used to have very short time. I did a live podcast with a co-host, and this one person comes on, doesn't have a picture, of course, no profile picture, and says to me, "You're using a filter, aren't you?" What? No, no, I'm not. She will not let this go. She hunts me down on Facebook and says something, and I'm like, no, I'm not using a filter. I have a ring light. Well, that's a filter. Okay, whatever. But then she starts saying, "You most likely wouldn't like to have anybody judge you. You most likely judge everybody." But I'm like, you don't even know who I am. You don't know who my friends are or anything. So goodbye. But
Yeah.
I realized at a certain point, though, that she most likely was getting off on the fact that I was getting riled up. And so I
Mhm.
think that's the real, just like you, that's that fine line we have to walk of, we can't give into that troll. We
Yeah.
can't give
Yeah.
into that person, because it's like, why do we, that's their opinion. And sometimes people hear what they want to hear. I had
Yeah.
this situation not too long ago. I said something on the podcast, and I even said that I was not disputing that something was real. It was about ADHD, but yet the person took it that I said that it wasn't real
Mhm.
and started sending me messages about how this is proof that it exists and everything else. And I'm like, I never said that it didn't exist. And it was a podcast I had done months before, so I had no idea what they were even talking about.
Mhm.
And it cost
Mhm.
me my friendship.
Wow.
This was a friend. And I'm like, we talk on the phone. You could have actually talked to me. But so, I mean, I think we have to watch how we perceive things when we listen. And if we, before we get that trigger set off, we have to really sit down and look at what we heard or what we saw to make sure it's real. And as a creative, as a person that's in the public eye, you have even more um, potential for somebody to come at you just because you are doing what they may have wanted to do.
So I get a lot of messages in general from actors or writers, and they're like trying to get me to work with them, read their stuff and things of that sort. And I mean, I don't respond to everybody just because sometimes I don't even see it. It wasn't until like maybe a year ago, I didn't even know they had all these boxes in Instagram. They got like all these boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know they existed. People like, "I sent you a request." I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I'm looking and looking, and then I like, oh, well.
Yeah.
So people send me stuff. And so sometimes actors will send me their posts and say, "Hey, this is me acting." And I tell them, I said, I see it. Why did you put me in your movie? I was like, it has to be something, whatever your character is, it has to be something I feel like you can do, or I feel like it fits with who you are. So it's nothing personal against you. It's just that I don't have anything at this particular moment that fits that. Or why don't you read my stuff? And I have to be really careful about that because then people come back and say, hey, I had the same idea and I sent you, so I try to like really stay away from that, but sometimes, I mean, people send me really nasty messages because I didn't use them or I didn't, I didn't respond to them and it's nothing personal. It's just that I did not see it or I can't respond to anything. Like if I go and say like, I got a movie that I'm doing next month in New Jersey called Balanced. And Balance is about this guy who's trying to start a mixed gender basketball league, which is loosely based off of what that's an Ebony Hustle Ballistic. It's like how this league got started. And so I put a post on Facebook saying I was looking for a certain crew. And so I'm getting a ton of messages. So I can't get to everybody. And so I told people, either DM me or email me, send their resume, whatever the case would be. I got overwhelmed with stuff. So I couldn't look to everybody. And so I just kind of like pick people based off of just random and checking their stuff. There's one guy got on Instagram and he started making comments on all my stuff. And it's like, hey, I sent you something. You're not responding to me. Like going through all my stuff. Why you don't respond to me? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, he's like, hey, you don't want to hire me. You got some problem with disabled people. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. And he got like so bent out of shape about that. And it's like, I eventually just blocked him. But I'm not, honestly, I believe in the spirit of collaboration. If I feel like I can collaborate with somebody, I will do it. But if I don't know that you exist, there's no way for me to collaborate with you, So you get the trolls, you get people make comments out of spite for whatever reason, and whatever they're going through in their life. I don't know what they're going through in their life. And, I tell people all the time, when I go and try to pitch for somebody, my pitch is going to be successful, not how great my pitch is or my idea. It's going to be based off of what happened that morning before they came to work. If their husband gave or wife gave them a kiss and said, have a good day, I might have an opportunity. But if they're arguing with their kids, their teenager, whatever, it's going to be a hard pitch. It may not go in my direction because they're just not interested in listening today. So people are people, they're humans, and we have to take into consideration. Even when responding to people, I try to tell people, I think I mentioned this before, on Facebook, they have this thing every day to tell you everybody whose birthday it is. And so I usually go, if I make sure I get around to it every day, it's say, happy B-Day, stay focused and determined. A lot of times I do it not just so much for them, but for me too, to try to stay focused. But then I'll get messages back from people saying to me, thank you so much because I really needed that. I don't know what's going on in their life. I don't know what troubles and things because social media only really shows the good. Very rarely shows the bad about people's life because we want to put our best foot forward, all shiny and glossy. That's what we want to do. Very rarely that people show like, man, today I just got evicted or I can't pay my car note or I don't have no food to feed my kids. Very rarely to do that. Most of it is all polished. I'm going on vacation. I'm having a great day. Those particular things. And when you talk to people, especially people who got successful and they posted stuff like that, they'll tell you, at this moment, I was at my lowest and I didn't even know what I was going to do or what was going to happen the next day, and it's set up for us to admire people, but at the same time, there does need some balance to show that every day is not a rosy day. Some days are not good. Some days I have bad days. Sometimes, I'm producing something or I'm writing something, whatever. I'm getting, trying to figure out what the next character going to be, or a deal didn't go the way I want to, or I'm a behind schedule for something. It's just life. And people want the good all the time. Life just doesn't work that way. Sometimes you got to take the bad and to get the good. Because if you get all good, it's like there's no balance. So if I get some bad things, when I get something good, I appreciate it because I know the other side to that. But if everything I do is positive, when something happens, I'm going to crash because I don't know how to deal with that. And a lot of people get stuck when they get something drastic happen and they don't know how to recover from that. And what happens is they crash because they're not used to people telling them no. Entitlement. We live in a society that everybody feels they're entitled to have things, somebody listen to them and give them what they want. Microwave society. I remember we had a microwave when they first came out. I remember my father bought my mother a microwave. But before that, when you wanted to heat your food up, you had to heat it up on the stove, put it in the oven. It was a process. There was no like, 30 seconds, done. It was like, okay, give me like 20, 30 minutes to heat your food up. We live in instant. Everything is instant. Air fryers. Crispy instantly, microwave, instant cooking. Nobody wants to wait and nobody wants to be a part of the process.
I got a story about that because Um, my microwave quit. I haven't over the stove microwave. It broke the door handle. Something in the door latch broke about 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and I never replaced it. I so
Really?
yeah, I decided no more microwave popcorn, which I love, but that's bad for
Mhm.
you anyway. So I was like, I'm just gonna cook and do everything. And yeah, I miss my microwave because man, heating up soup would be a lot quicker. I just I know exactly what you're saying. It's all about instant gratification. And for me personally, when my husband passed, I have two different Facebook accounts. I admit that. I have a personal and I have a professional. And I made the choice. I'm like, I don't want to have to contact everybody. So on my personal account, I shared what happened. I mean, I was teary-eyed and everything else. Yet my professional accounts, my Instagram, everything that remained pristine. Yes, I did eventually post a picture saying he passed, but that remained pristine. And I know some other authors, when they have lost their spouse or whatever, it's been all over their professional account.
Mhm.
For me, I didn't want to do that. I couldn't do that. It was too personal, it was too heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And once again, it's like, you don't want to put that out there in the world because then you're labeled that. I mean, especially when you lose a spouse, because then you become that dreaded word of widow.
Yeah.
And I mean, once again, we're back to labels, and it's like, I don't want to be labeled that. I am not that old. Why do I want to be labeled as a widow? And I mean, it's not just a word. It goes on your taxes, it goes in your medical records, it goes on your car insurance. And why? Why
Hmm.
is that? Does
Hmm.
that change something because if I was single before, I'm just single now. What does
Hmm.
it matter?
Mm.
But
That's interesting because I'm divorced, and so I when they ask you that question, it's like single, married, divorced. When they ask you all those questions, at what point do I just be single? Do I always be divorced? Or I guess until I get married again, so will you always be a widow until you get married again? I mean, what does that mean?
after he died, I had my doctor had changed practices and I was filling out the paperwork and I looked at my doctor. I said, I am not putting widow. I hate that word. Basically, that word to me just sets me up to be scammed. It's like a
Mhm.
big neon sign saying, hey, I possibly have a life insurance policy and money, and I am single and ready to mingle.
Mhm.
So come take advantage. And it's just like, no, I don't want to be labeled a widow. It's not a very positive word. It's a dark word. So why do I want to put just like divorce? Yeah, okay, how many people I can understand back in the 70s when my parents divorced, it was a big deal. But how many of us have been divorced now in our life?
Yeah,
I've been divorced.
yeah,
You've been divorced. I mean, it's commonplace. So once again, why are we labeling ourselves to give you some kind of demographic that I was a widow? Well, wait, am I suddenly not going to, like you were saying, am I suddenly not going to be a widow anymore because I remarried?
yeah,
Because I married again?
yeah,
Oh, okay. And you're not divorced anymore because you remarried, but the technical term really is you're single. So am I. So there
yeah,
you go. And maybe you're
yeah.
not, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah, I do understand. But
So,
it goes back to the idea of putting people in boxes.
mhm.
And society works the way. When I get artists a lot of time come to me, especially music artists, and they want to like want me to help them with their music career. The one thing I hate when they say to me is this. I said, well, tell me, who you are, about your music and everything. And they go describe themselves. And I said, well, what is like your comparables? He's like, well, I'm unique. Okay. Okay. You're not unique. I said, the problem with being unique is that in this society is that if I go to a radio station with your music, it's all programmed. In Europe, it's like radio stations and DJs have, programs. In America, this station plays this type of music. This station plays this type of music. Very few stations just play whatever the DJ plays. Just they all specialty radio. And I said, so if I go to someone, they're going to ask me what type of song it is so they can determine what part of day to put it in and like what station it can go to, And so we all have distinctions of each other as much as unique we are. Unfortunately, we are kind of man, woman, child.
Hmm.
Society has all these boxes that we want to conform to put us in as much as we want to be unique. But the thing about it is that it goes back to the whole thing about us being unique. We're probably more similar than they are different. I think that as a society, we wouldn't, even as just human beings, we wouldn't work if we were just that much different. We wouldn't be able to cooperate with each other. We wouldn't be able to form relationships if we're just so individually unique. I believe that humans are very complex organic machines. And so we have programming and things that we need to make us move forward. So whoever created us or whatever people want to do, it was by, in my opinion, it's intelligent design. And so somebody said that. So there's not an infinite amount of us. There's some variations, but it's not an infinite, because in that case, we wouldn't be able to communicate with each other. The programs wouldn't work. So there is enough of us of similarities to allow us to work together than there are not, So you ever meet somebody and right off the bat, you just like connect with them and you
Yeah.
just talk with them and just really connect with them. And you meet other people, you be like, oh, okay, have a good day. And just like, just weird. You can't figure programming. The programming, there's two things humans need. They need fuel and they need programming. And if those two things do not intersect very well with that person or with you, it's not going to work. I don't care how much you try to load a Mac program on a Windows, the Apple might come up, but it's not going to work. I guarantee it's not going to work. I don't know how many times in your diet, if you're diabetic and you keep eating things you're not supposed to, you're going to keep going to the doctor. And you're like, why I keep going to the doctor? Because you're not doing the things that you need to keep that from happening. And so if I can stress anything to people is that we are more alike than we are different. And then we really should try to look for the things that bring us together instead of the things that separate us.
I agree. And I think if we could actually, the one thing we have to take in consideration as far as being different is maybe when we talk about schooling, when we talk about learning. And that's because we all learn differently. When we're taught in society, once again, to be in that box, to perform this way, but we're not all that way. Some
Yeah.
people learn differently. And I mean,
Yeah.
if we can learn how to, I think the biggest gift we could give our kids is if we could have them learn how to get along and to learn how to manage their stress. And that would be a gift because I know most likely you weren't taught how to manage stress. I wasn't taught
Yeah.
how to manage stress. And
Yeah.
so without those tools, this is why you have that moment of somebody saying something and boom, you're back to where you were because and I had talked to a guest on a podcast. You mentioned something earlier about your pitch. And they were talking about how they were at a nail salon and Paula Abdul walked in and she was having a really bad day and she was like 2 hours late for her appointment and she was very catty and everything. And somebody was gossiping about it. And the person said, well, you don't know what she's gone through. You don't know what happened to her that day. And apparently Paula came back a couple of days later and apologized for what had happened. But that's the thing. We don't know what is going on in a person's life. And if we don't have those tools to communicate that program you're talking about, then we can't be empathetic to them when they're having that bad day.
Yeah.
And that's a detriment. It really is.
We should allow ourselves some grace and we should allow other people grace because of that, and even if you feel like there are things that happen in my life that I feel is detrimental and I go explain to somebody else, they'd be like, oh, that ain't nothing. I can show you some real stress. But to me, it's dramatic based off of my understanding of the world is dramatic. So I'm always appreciative and humbled when I'm talking to people or doing different things with people because I just don't know. As much as I think the issues or problems I have, I know that there's somebody who has worse problems than I do. So I have to be grateful for the problems I have because it could be a lot big different. I have a roof over my head. I have opportunities. I have people who want to work with me. There are a lot of filmmakers that's trying to, I go, especially on Facebook. I have to say on Facebook in those groups, filmmaker groups sometime. Because somebody will post something, ask a question about something, and then it's always this one or two people who is like, "Oh, that'll never work. It ain't gonna work. Hollywood not gonna do it," and blah blah blah. And it's like, man. And there's one guy said one time, and he told this guy, the young guy, he said, "Ignore him. He came to Hollywood. It didn't work out the way he wanted to, so now he's just negative about it. Yeah, this guy was like saying that the only way your movie can be successful, you got to have a whole bunch of big names in it. And I was compelled to say, I said, well, that's not true. That's just not true. And you can make money. And I, start talking. He's like, oh no, that's impossible. And it's like, because of his bitterness, he was not able to transcend past that. He went to Hollywood and when I sat down, he got this really great idea and they said no. But I tell people all the time, especially when it comes to entertainment, I realized this a long time ago. Record labels, network streaming platforms, although they traffic in creativity, they're corporate entities.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go and talk to somebody and pitch somebody something. They got PTO, they got benefits, they got vacation time off. They're not trying to do anything that's going to mess up their job. They don't want to take a chance with somebody they feel like they're unsure about, and then they do this project, spend all this money, and then it doesn't do what it's supposed to, and they're going to lose their job. And so
Right.
a lot of times Hollywood has a tendency to work with the same people or people who have proven they can do certain things, so they can come back with something. And they're very, very, every now and then they'll let somebody in. Somebody let me in. Somebody said yes. Every time somebody said yes to me, they probably said no to somebody else. When I had done a couple of films before I did my first film, Red All Over, but it was I come from press up the DVD, press up the VHS, and you go sell it to mom and pops and go in the corner and do that thing. But Red Alert was my first wide release movie. And when I went and sent that movie into them, I guarantee you before they looked at mine, they would look at somebody else and they said no. But they said yes to me. And once I did that movie and it was out and you can go and see it everywhere, it opened up opportunities that I didn't even know it exists. People was, agreeing to take meetings or at least acknowledging me to the point before they just wasn't willing to do it. Once I started doing other stuff, then, I called somewhere because when you call to people, they Google you.
Mm-hmm.
They Google you.
Oh yeah.
Googling is the real thing. You talk to somebody, Googling them. And once you have done a significant amount of stuff, or at least a decent amount, then they make a determination if they want to meet with you or not. I had, when we were doing false profits, I do a lot of product placement. And so I would call people or send them an email about doing product placement. And there's one hotel I wanted to use in Galveston. It's a really nice hotel. I went and sent a message. So the guy got my message, he got my email, my little pitch of what I wanted to do. So he called me back and said, hey, yeah, come on in. Let's sit down and have a conversation and talk and everything. So I'm looking at this hotel. I was like, wow, God, I said, I hope he's not going to change his mind or something like that. So he sits down talking to me and said, it's a really nice hotel. And I don't know what I said, but he said to me, the only reason we're sitting here because I did Google you. And if I hadn't Googled you, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. So I see that you are a legitimate producer and I want to do this. So let's do it. But if I hadn't, I'm just somebody with this idea, he would probably said no. So he
Right.
didn't have to say yes to me, but he said yes. And so I believe everybody gets the opportunity to have a seat at the table. When you get to the table, you got to have something to say. And that's what happens a lot of times. They don't have nothing to say or not prepared. And they get there and they have like that one pony and they put the pony up first. I don't like that. What else you got? It's like, oh, I ain't got nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir, for coming in. Have a nice day. And also, too, one thing about pitch, just from entertainment in general. If I go to a network and I try to kind of figure out what they want to do, because if I go there and I got like this great TV show that I feel like is really good, and every quarter they go and tell their vice presidents or people in charge of the department, say, hey, I need you to go out and give me some late night programming. So they go out and they take pictures for late night programming. And I come in with this great daytime programming. They said, that's a good idea, but we're going to pass. And I'm like, wow, well, how would you pass? It's like sending somebody to the store to get bread and milk and they come back with butter because it was on sale. I asked you for late night programming and you brought me a daytime program. That's not what I asked for. And so a lot of times when people go pitch, even for artists, if you're trying to get signed at a label, you have to know what they're looking for. So you can go and pitch that versus you just come up and you just think you're so unique and what you got is going to save the world. That's not what they were looking to spend their money on this particular time. They want to spend their money on something else. And so have some kind of accurate knowledge about what you're trying to do and do some research because this is a business at the end of the day. It is not a creative endeavor as much as we all would like it to be. It is a business. And if anything, I've learned that numbers don't lie. I can have conversations with people and I can show them verified streams and things of that sort. Numbers don't lie. So it's not a matter of, I think this is going to do it. I've already proven that this is good, and so in life, it's always important to remember that it's not always about you. And if something doesn't go your way, it's not because you're a bad person or something like that. It's just life. You just pick yourself up and you keep going. Because the thing about it is, if somebody doesn't say no, they want to say yes. You just got to figure out a way for them to say yes.
Yes, this is very true. This is very true. Uh, And something else about pitching, and I was at a writing conference this weekend, a virtual writing conference this weekend, and yeah, they honed in that this is a business. As a writer, you are it's not just about writing that book, it's about being a business person.
Mhm.
And there was a contest I had entered years ago, and I always had this nagging thing because I pulled out of it because the contract in itself, it was to a decent publisher. It said in the contract that if we happen to write another book that's like yours, you can't sue us.
Mhm.
Well, it's always nagged at me because I was like, well, that just seems like I'm just going to hand them over that book and they're going to run with it.
Mhm.
So I talked to the lawyer this weekend and I brought that up, and she's like, you did the best thing in the world you could for yourself because they most likely would have done that.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that even pitching to a network, you have to be careful of your idea because you can't copyright an idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that also being said, every idea is being repeated. It's the execution of the idea that makes it
Yes.
different.
There are ways of protecting yourself. I mean, there are ways of protecting your pitch. You can register the WGA, they register pitches. A lot of times when people take pitches from people or you have opportunity to go in the pitch, it's really based off of relationships that somebody introduced to somebody else and things of that sort. And so when you get introduced to somebody, a lot of times the likelihood that they're going to steal your pitch is kind of
Yeah.
almost because you got to introduce, or if you have a pitch based around a person, some celebrity, kind of hard to steal that, when it's, based around a particular person. So people are going to take it as a grain of salt, and they're going to just re-engineer it and do it because it just happens. So take it as a grain of salt that you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's the thing I do because even if you did something, every movie that's ever been done, I guarantee you that somebody saying I had that idea. It always somebody gonna say that because there's nothing new under the sun. But take it as a way of you going in the right direction and keep pressing on, and not take that so much to, well, they took my idea. And that was the only idea I had. I can't imagine creatives just having one idea, kind of
Mm,
roll with it. I'm encouraged when I see things that I have in my mind thought I conceptualize, and even stuff what I've sent out to people, and I see some kind of version of it. And I'm sure if I spend a lot of time trying to connect the dots, maybe I can find a connection. But I look at the idea that my ideas are just not one or two. I have tons of them. I can create just a ton of them. I got tons of them. We sit all day. I can just talk about my ideas. So I don't take it as like somebody is like, get stuck in and be like, oh my God, I
right.
can't do nothing else. I just have to keep moving on. I had to keep moving on. People take my ideas all the time. They say, yes, I like that. And we do something with it. Other times they say no, and they may go re-engineer. I can't focus on that. I have to focus on what's ahead of me and moving forward. Till I get to a point to where if I go and sit down with somebody, they're never going to try to. It's like if Steven Spielberg went to talk to Netflix, whatever his ideas, I guarantee you they're not going to take it and re-engineer it.
No,
They're
no,
not going to do that,
no.
And so the idea is work hard enough to where people understand your brand and who you are, to where if it's an idea that you think they might do, they can't because you're so connected to it and your execution of it is so powerful that no matter what they did, it can never be you or the way you did it.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to, when you have your idea, you have to execute it flawlessly or as flawlessly as possible that nobody's going to want to re-engineer it, that they will be willing to pay that price. I mean, Anne Rice sold the rights to Interview with a Vampire back in the 70s,
Mhm.
and they never did anything with it. And she was waiting and waiting and waiting until they reverted back to her, and then she got the book done. Then she had the movie done, and then we saw the little movies, and now it's a TV show. And granted, she's gone, but her son and her estate is profiting from that now. So it's like that's the one thing also as a creative and copyright, which has come up because of the Mickey Mouse thing. Even after you and I are gone, 70 years later, our work is still there and protected for our estate and our family. And I don't think people look at that either. They don't understand that the biggest thing, and I'm going to say this, and I know you most likely will say this as well. If you're going to pitch something to somebody, make sure you have your copyright in place. Make sure you have all those things taken care of before you go hand it to them,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that way you are protected. Because there's so
yes,
many, that was something that was talked about, and I've always copywritten my own stuff. If a publisher says, hey, I'll sign a contract with me, we'll take care of the copyright, you are signing your rights away.
yeah,
So don't
yeah.
do it.
Yeah, that's why it's important that you do understand that entertainment is a business, and so you understand the business part of it. And a lot of times, I get a lot of creators, people come to me, they'll have finished product, and a lot of times they don't have all the paperwork they need. And so they want the distributor just to come and just do everything for them. I said, if anybody's doing that, they're going to do it slighted toward them. I guarantee you, it's not going to be in your particular favor. So you want to understand enough to where you understand what they're doing. So if they do something that you don't really like, or at least have somebody around you, an attorney or someone like that, who has a discernment to where they can say, hey, this is not right. Do not go into this in this fairy tale idea that you're going to get picked up by a distributor, they're going to save your life and everything is going to be perfect. They're going to do everything and you're going to get your money and great. There are tons of music artists who would beg to differ when they sign with a manager, who are big and famous. They'll tell you that I wish that I hadn't done it, or I wish that I had a little bit more discernment or asked for something. When I tell people all the time, when you get a contract from somebody, it's okay to say, let me read it and ask for changes. The most they can say is no.
Mm-hmm.
But don't just sign something blankly and you didn't really read it or get some insight into it. It's okay. So if they tell you that you need to turn around 5 times, you're like, ooh, turn around 5 times might be a much. You say, can we do 3? They're like, okay, I'm okay with 3. But you didn't ask.
No.
And now you got to turn around 5 times and you're dizzy. And now you don't know what to do.
Well, and a lot of artists, and this goes back to what you're saying about music. Same thing with the writing is people will say, "Oh, I want to be traditionally published. They'll take care of marketing and everything." Oh, no, 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 no. They may do some marketing, but that still onus is on you. You are
That's
still,
right.
once again, you are still the business person. You are still the product. Because the one thing is, we have these. You have a movie to market. I have a book to market. But really, what are people wanting to know besides those products is who you are. What are
Yes.
you like? And that's the thing. You have to sell yourself just as much as you're selling your product. You can't go
Yes.
hide.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, the thing about that is traditionally, although I am a talker, traditionally, I'm not a real big open up myself type person. You know, my circle is really small, the people I deal with. And I've just had that. That's just the way who I am as a person. So it takes a lot for me to go and say, hey, I'm going to do, even though I do pretty good interviewing and talking to people, it's not necessarily the first thing. When I talk to our artists, especially filmmakers, I say, although you give it to a distributor, they're going to do some marketing. This is your IP. This is your responsibility. You cannot just put it out there and expect it's going to be okay. You need to really get behind it. You really need to push it to a point to where people want to see it. There are 24 hours in a day. You asking somebody to spend an hour and a half to look at or listen to whatever you're trying to do. You have to convince them that this is what they need to do. And if you don't convince enough people, no matter how great it is, it won't make a difference because nobody will ever see it. I still market stuff. People say all the time, why do I keep marketing like pushing red all over? Because you still can go see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still make money from it. I want people to look at it. There are billions of people in this world. I would imagine 1/8, not even that much of people who've ever seen that movie. But if I don't talk about it and I don't put it in their ideas of what they could possibly do when they're looking at the movie, then they're not going to be thinking about it. But I'm putting it in their mind and I'm marketing, I'm putting it on my story, I'm pushing it here and there. Then people will be like, when I go look at a movie, maybe I'll look at his. Maybe. That's a big difference from I have no idea that it exists. It's like McDonald's. McDonald's, by no stretch of the imagination, have the best hamburgers in the world. By no stretch of the imagination. The products are okay, but they're not that great. But why does billions of people go have eaten their food? You go to the drive-through, there's lines around the block for it. Why is that? Good marketing.
Mm-hmm.
They convince you that you deserve a break today. You always
Yep.
have a good friend at McDonald's. I think I want to have a burger. I'm gonna go over to McDonald's. How about some chicken nuggets? Oh my goodness. I was reading this article the other day about McDonald's and why their soda tastes so much different. Because my kids are like, oh, let's go get soda from McDonald's. It tastes so different. I'm like, well, what? The reason why they soda taste good, this is just so ingenious of them thinking, because most people don't do this. The reason why their soda tastes good is that when it's get delivered to McDonald's, it's delivered in these silver canisters, these metal canisters, and so it keeps all the freshness and compresses in. So every time you push the button, do it, it's like fresh. Compared to, I don't know if you ever seen soda
Oh,
that come in a box in a bag at most
yeah.
restaurants.
They
That's what it is.
started that in the 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But at McDonald's, it comes in the cylinders. So
Like it
every
used
time
to.
you
Yeah.
push the button, it's fresh.
Okay.
Somebody's thinking.
Yeah.
We make
Yeah.
these great sodas. They just soda. You come here, you're gonna get some fries, you get some other things. It tastes so different. The fries taste different. Somebody's sitting there. How we can get these French fries taste like that? And the powerful thing about McDonald's, which I've always ingenious, no matter what McDonald's you go to, all the food tastes exactly the same.
True. True.
There's no like, you know how you have some restaurants and people say, don't go to that one. Go to the one
Yeah.
down the street. It's better. McDonald's, no matter which one you go to, all the fries taste the same. All the
Yeah.
burgers taste the same. The shakes, everything all tastes the same. That's some powerful organization and also powerful marketing. And people believe that.
And I mean, it's not, and it's all franchise based. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's the really big trick is it's all franchise based. It's not just okay. Everybody has this one restaurant. No, it's all franchises.
Yeah.
So that was my very first job was working at McDonald's, and yeah, it was an event working there
I
because
worked at
everything had to be.
McDonald's. It wasn't my first job, but I worked there as a teenager. I worked in the drive-through.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to make I used to make all these voices like I was a Shamrock Shake guy, just all different type of things. I really liked it because it allowed me to be, be creative. As I think about it
Right.
now, as we're talking
Right.
about, be really creative. I was different characters based off of whatever the promotion was. I really liked that job. This is gonna tell you all that. You know how much I was making on that job? $3.15 an hour.
Yeah, you and I are around the same age because I think I was making 325.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean and there was no credit cards, no credit cards, one drive through, and you had to do everything, the drinks,
Yes.
everything. And it's like now you have two drive throughs and you're backed up this much, and then you'd have like somebody coming through when they would do the burger specials for like 10 cents or 15 cents, and I want 60 burgers in the drive through,
Yeah.
and then everybody else wants burgers too. So yeah, then you're getting that line, and it's like you're that one person and you got that
Yeah.
little beeper going off because
Yeah.
you're over your time. Yeah.
And you had to count the change back.
Yes.
So
That
you
was
really
it.
need to know how to count money because if you go into a restaurant and you give a one of the cashiers $10.02, they're confused.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Well, why did you give me this 2 cents? Well, I just want to get a dime back. I already
I
put
don't
it in
yeah, I
cash
can't do
register.
that.
I didn't call
Yeah.
the manager because they want to.
Yep.
What are we
Yep.
doing here? Yeah, so yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
so you and I are around the same age because yeah, I worked drive through. I started as a front and then I worked drive through. And the worst day I think was I worked front. I gave a birthday party and then I had drive through. And there's supposed to be child labor laws. I worked like 12 hours that day. I
Really?
was yeah, I used to close. According to labor laws, I wasn't supposed to be there after 9 o'clock. I would
Mm.
close at midnight on the
Oh
weekends.
yeah, I would close all the time.
Oh,
That was
and
never, yeah.
now I have to ask. So when you closed, did
Mhm.
you get to take food home?
Yes, we took
Yes.
food home. Yeah, we took home. And the funny thing about my parents are vegetarians now, but back in the day they wasn't. So I had like just burgers and a galore. We would just the refrigerator just be stuffed with food galore.
My mom started wrapping them and freezing them because my stepbrother was always eating and then he would microwave it. So yeah, I'd
Mm,
come home with little bags of food and yeah. But
yeah.
now they don't close. They don't close.
No, they
And I
don't. They
think
don't
to
close.
myself, and this we never had problems with the shake machine back then. And I think to
No.
myself, maybe it's because you guys are open 24/7 and how clean are your restaurants? I mean, back in the day, man, you had to deck brush that stuff.
Yes. Use the sanitizer to put
Hmm.
in there. Yeah, that was a whole process, and you were actually cleaning stuff. So I imagine they don't really clean as much as they possibly should clean it. Um, I know that I'm gonna say this, and I hope this don't go into a tangent, but there was this FBI investigation into McDonald's about the shake machine, and what they found out is the person who was servicing them, they were doing certain things to them to ensure that they can keep servicing the shake machines. Because if you got a shake machine or any equipment that's constantly breaking down, you probably need to move to a new vendor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to use vendor. There's no reason why you go to McDonald's is y'all shake machine because the shake machine a lot of time back in the day comprises of also the ice cream and the shakes. And so
Hmm.
if you didn't have that, everything nobody's getting any kind of dessert like that. So there's no corporate conspiracy. I'm sure that
I
there's.
know. The worst moment. So one of those long days I worked, it was like we had corporate coming in, and once again, I'm a teenager. I'm not supposed, but we're going to pull you in. Okay. So I get to go clean the men's room. Not that you need to know all this, folks, but this is the first time I'm truly in a men's room and that I remember. And I'm cleaning the urinal, and I put this chemical in the urinal. It starts smoking.
Mm.
It starts smoking. I'm thinking, I really shouldn't be in here with the noxious fumes here, but here you go. Just take care of
Yeah, go
this.
ahead and do it. Yeah, yes, go and do it. Yes, yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
taking up the ketchup at night because on Friday nights for the football games, because otherwise you'd have ketchup fights, and then you had to be careful giving ketchup packets. Yeah, the joys of it. However, that being said about McDonald's, that my boss had the whole if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Yes,
But
yes, yes. They said that.
but when I went to work as Chuck E. Cheese as a birthday hostess and then eventually moved into team leader, and this is when we had video games, so it was cool. Team leader and then an assistant manager, I have to say, because I worked at McDonald's and it taught me teamwork, it was easy to go there. It was
Yeah,
easy to be a team player. And I think a
yes,
lot of places don't teach you that, especially
yeah.
now.
Yeah, I would agree. I worked at McDonald's for a bit when I was in high school. Then I went to work for Wags. Do you remember Wags?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yes. I was a busboy at Wags, and this is crazy. We used to this is insane. So when I would clean the tables off, you get the basket of rolls. We would take the rolls back and put them back in warmer. People
I'm not surprised. I mean, I worked at the salad bar at Chuck's and the salad bar at the grocery store. Okay, we're gonna rotate everything. Okay, so we have the salad dressing that's been sitting on top. Now you're gonna take that. You're gonna take another crock. You're gonna pour new salad dressing at the bottom, and then pour the old salad dressing on top.
Yes.
Strawberry at the grocery store, the salad bar was part of the produce department, and the produce guys would bring in like the strawberries that had mold and stuff on it. I had to cut the mold off, clean the berries, then
Mm.
put them in the dish, and then that strawberry gelatin that they and mix that all up, and then serve it out on the salad bar.
It's amazing that we're
Yummy!
not dead.
So true, so true. We digressed way, but anyway, so the movie's coming out, and we did talk a little bit about it, and I was going to bring up false profit and balance. You brought that up. Is there anything that we really haven't talked about that you want to add?
So I have two other documentaries coming out this year. One is called Balling Abroad. It's about basketball players, professional basketball players who go play in China and overseas. It was shot there a couple of years ago, mostly in China, and it kind of tells the struggles and things they do. A lot of times, young kids here think if they can't get in the NBA, they don't, because there's only so many slots a year that they can't make it. There's tons of opportunities to play overseas in European leagues and in China and Japan and different other parts of the world where their dreams can come true outside of just America. So it kind of teases opportunities outside of what your understanding is. Then I have this other documentary about the Tulsa riots called Greenwood Avenue Project. So it's kind of like we talk about what happened in Tulsa, but we also talk about what they're doing now and how the people are reviving it and how they feel about those particular times. Both of those documentaries will be coming out later this year on Freestyle. So outside of that, that's enough. I got some other things that's in the pipeline too working, but those are the things that I'm working on right now.
Now, the documentaries, did you produce, right, or just
I just produced those documentaries. I was not part of a lot of the process. I was part of the marketing process when we actually start to, do anything. And then once we actually start to once they're released, then we start to go out and do PR and everything. But I'm just a producer on it. I realized a long time ago that one thing, when you direct something, directing is a very emotionally intensive thing. You have to really be there and really be at the moment. But as a producer, I can produce multiple things at one time. I don't have to be so emotionally intensive. I can really stay focused on the project and making sure it's right and getting it to where it needs to be. And so I decided a couple of years ago to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to assist filmmakers who have projects that sometimes people don't. In this age, because everything is so easy, People feel like they get a camera or whatever, and they just want to go shoot a movie or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times they don't really understand the business aspect of that. I have this movie that came out this past June called Plugged. Plug is about these two guys from West Memphis who had on a run from a murder rap. They come to Houston for this, trying to get away from this murder rap. When they came to me with this, they had no paperwork whatsoever. And so I had to go through the whole process of helping them get the paperwork. And at first, and in the process, they were getting discouraged because, it's hard to get people to sign afterwards. And it's like, just forget it. We just going to put it on YouTube and it's just going to be. I said, no. I said, don't worry. We're going to get through this. When the movie came out in June, it was #1 and #2 on Tubi in its catalog. Yes. It did very well. Very, very well. And that just comes from me saying, okay, I'm going to help some other people. I'm going to help some other creatives who need that because they don't really understand the business part of it. Going that route does create a lot of frustration because you got to try to explain to people why you can't do this. And, we have to do it this way and things of that sort. But when I remember a couple of years ago, I did this interview and the lady asked me, why am I a filmmaker? And most of the time people ask that, I usually have a canned response. But this particular day, when she asked me that, I said, because I want to live forever. And the only way that I can live forever is to kind of spread what I have in my mind and what I've learned and what I've connected with people to provide other opportunities, not just out of myself. When I started this industry, I didn't have any mentors per se. I made a lot of mistakes. People wouldn't listen to what I have to say. They just would not pay too much attention. So I had to go out and prove every step of the way that I can do this. So it was something inside of me. I remember the moment that I realized the reason why I'm a producer and why that was important to me. I was in doing a music video, and I was sitting in the back doing paperwork in the band and everything. And this I can hear them shooting things of this sort. I'm sorry, somebody keep calling me. And what happens is that I remember when I was in the 3rd grade, there was an assembly program, and they don't really do it too much now, but back in the day, they'll find a popular song, and then the kids get on stage, and So this particular one was the stylistics, People Make the World Go Round. And so when they got around to me, I had like this slate, and my mother bought me this Indiana Jones, and I said, I want to be a film producer. Forgot all about that. Life go on, not what I was trying to do, anything like that. I remember right there in that van, I remember that moment that I was in the 3rd grade, said I wanted to be a producer, and that clicked to me like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. A lot of people can't say that when they were doing it in the 3rd grade, or even as a child. Everybody wants to say, hey, I want to be this or I want to be that. But a lot of people can't say that. So I'm very honored and humbled that it was something inside of me that the universe allowed it to come out and to bear fruit as it has.
That's an amazing story. It really is. And a powerful story. And I'm glad you're living your purpose.
Yes.
And your dream.
Yes.
So I thank you, John, for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm always humble, always humble.
You might have heard my voice hosting the Better To podcast, but did you know I'm also the mastermind behind the Better to Burnout book series? The stories unravel the lives of Nigel Hartigan, the groovy bassist of Sambuca Fedora, the stunning singer-model Ava Richards, and the suave record executive singer Russell Langford. Love, romance, and drama run rampant as their lives tangle up. But brace yourself, folks, because not every tale has a happy ending. Snag your copy today from most online booksellers. The episode today with John, it was one of those things where we went down a few rabbit holes that I didn't intend to go down. I mean, I was not expecting us to talk about McDonald's, but considering that we both had the similarity of working there, it was interesting to go down memory lane because the McDonald's that we knew is not the same McDonald's that exists today. And I think that job instilled a lot in, I know for myself it did, and I think for him as well, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. But it also taught teamwork. And that was something that was beneficial to having a career and working at most companies. If you can learn teamwork, which kind of also goes along to the lines of getting along with everybody. If you learn teamwork, you learn how to work with other people. And then you learn how to communicate and you learn how to function in society. And I think that's an important key to everything we do in this world. But we also talked about his movies and what it's like to be a producer and what it's like to be a writer and a director. And we talked about social media, and they were all good points. When we talk about the naivety of thinking that when we get to a point where whether it's writing a book or making a song or producing something, creating a whole movie like the one group of people that he worked with did, you have to protect yourself. You have to make sure that and ensure that your rights are protected. Get a copyright, get a trademark. You can do it in different ways. You don't have to necessarily, as far as trademarking things, you can do it at the local level as well instead of just doing it federally. Because sometimes we don't have, as a new artist, as a new creative, when you build something, you think, okay, I wrote a book, it's all great, or I created a song, it's all wonderful. But you have to protect yourself because somebody can come along and take that. And I've dealt with pirate sites. I've seen, and I remember my husband and I laughing about it because of the sheer fact that, according to a pirate site, one of my books was already on there, but a book that I had not even written, I was in the process of writing, was available for you to buy. And all that is a scam. Now, that is a different type of scam. Nobody actually took anything from me. But as we discussed in the podcast, there are many ways that other people can take things from you. So make sure that when you have something to pitch, that everything is ready to go, that you have that paperwork. As I said in the podcast, if you write a book, don't sit there and say, oh, well, I'm going to give it to a publisher so they can sign it. Because I was talking to somebody yesterday who knows a fellow author, and she signed her books to a publishing house. And she thought after 7 years, she was going to get those books back. And it turns out that that's not the case. So the character she can't do anything with unless she wants to write another book for that publisher. And she's not going to get any money for that. So be smart. Make sure that you have protections in place for your characters and for what you write or for what you create at all. Because there are people that are going to be a little bit unscrupulous. So make sure you protect yourself. But as far as John, I mean, he has a lot of projects on. Excuse me. As far as John, he has a lot more projects coming, and this is his passion. I mean, the story he shared about being in third grade and remembering that at that key moment that, yeah, I'm living my passion, I'm living my dream. There's so many of us that can't say we're living our dream. Us working at McDonald's, that wasn't living a dream. That was a job, and it was a different time. But to be able to say I'm living a dream is an amazing thing. It's like me being a writer and me doing this, me being a podcaster. These are amazing things that I hope to do, but I didn't really realize that I could. I wasn't sure that the fruition of my dreams would be there, but it's happened. And there's something empowering when you know that you're living a dream. And the one thing him and I didn't talk about, but I think it's important, is we want feedback sometimes because of the fact that if we have that feedback, it helps us to create more. It helps us to motivate more. And, before we got in the interview, we actually talked about something, and that's about how sometimes we hold on to our creative project, our creative baby, our creative, piece of work, and that we overthink it, overplan it, overpaint it, overwrite it, because we want that, we're striving for that bit of perfection. And the fact is, perfection is just an illusion. So don't put yourself in a box that it's got to be perfect, because guess what? There is no such thing as perfection. As somebody said at the writing conference I was at this weekend, she has three editors that she pays to edit her book. Yet when she releases it, hoping that it's perfect, she still has people write to her and say, oh, I found this error here. So understand that you can have people review, you can have people look at things, but you have to let go. If you really wanted to do something, you have to let it go and put it out there and see where it goes. Because this is your creative project, this is your creative baby, and you need to put it out there in the world. So on that note, I'd like to thank Rich Zai for doing the audio for the Third Ear Audio Productions, and I'd like to thank Fast Susie for the intro and outro music. And I'd like to thank you for listening. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please drop me a line at donna@dmneedom.com. We are still booking guests. And, you know, whenever you're listening to this, whether it be night, morning, all day long, the weekend, whenever, I thank you for listening. And if you have a question, please drop me a line. Same email, donna@dmneedom.com. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening, day, weekend. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.